What happens when a man who doesn't believe in anything discovers something beneath the ground that should not exist? A miracle of the Virgin Mary buried 3 meters underground. One that no one has been able to explain to this day. But before we continue, leave a comment saying where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. I'd love to see how far the miracles of the Virgin Mary are reaching. Now let's go back to the beginning. You know that kind of man who wakes up before sunrise every single day without needing an alarm? The kind who drinks black coffee standing in silence in a dark kitchen before heading out to work without speaking to anyone? That was Kevin Carter, 40 years old. 18 of those years spent inside excavators, bulldozers, and trench machines under the brutal Texas heat. Kevin lived in Houston, though calling it living might have been generous. His apartment looked less like a home and more like a temporary waiting room for a life that never really started. No family photos, no decorations, no music, no signs of joy. Everything clean enough to function, but empty in a way that felt cold, like nobody truly belonged there. Kevin had been divorced for 4 years. His ex-wife Lauren used to tell him the same thing over and over during the final years of their marriage. You're physically here, Kevin, but emotionally you're somewhere else. At first he ignored it. Then he got irritated by it. Eventually he stopped reacting at all. The night she left, Lauren stood by the front door holding 2 suitcases while Kevin sat silently on the couch watching television with the volume low. You know what the worst part is? She asked. Kevin looked at her, but said nothing. It feels like I spent years trying to hug a wall. And then she walked out. Kevin didn't stop her, didn't beg, didn't argue, didn't cry. He just sat there listening to the sound of her car disappearing down the street. And afterward, the apartment somehow became even quieter than before. But there was something Kevin never told anyone. Not Lauren, not his coworkers, not even the doctors completely understood how bad it truly was. The pain. Have you ever lived with pain for so long that it stops feeling temporary? Not a headache, not soreness after work. I mean the kind of pain that wakes up with you every morning and follows you like a shadow everywhere you go. Pain that changes how you sit, how you walk, how you breathe, how you sleep. Kevin had a severe herniated disc between L4 and L5. The last specialist he visited spoke honestly. Mr. Carter, the doctor said carefully, surgery is possible, but given the location and severity of the injury, there's significant risk. What kind of risk? Kevin asked. The doctor hesitated. Loss of mobility. Kevin stared at him. Temporary, possibly permanent. The room became very still. So what happens if I don't do surgery? Kevin finally asked. The doctor leaned back slowly. The pain will continue. It will likely worsen. You'll eventually need stronger medication. And there's a real possibility that within a few years, you may no longer be able to work. 2 choices. Risk paralysis, or slowly lose his body piece by piece. Kevin chose the pain. His coworkers noticed something was wrong, of course. How could they not? He moved slower now. Sometimes climbed out of the excavator carefully like an old man, even though he was only 40. Sometimes leaned against walls when nobody was looking. Sometimes his hands trembled after long shifts. But whenever anyone asked, Kevin always answered the same way. Just slept wrong. Always the same sentence. Always the same lie. Then came the Tuesday in September that changed everything. The construction site sat outside Houston near a growing commercial district. Huge project. Months of excavation work. Kevin had been operating the excavator since 7 that morning. The work was routine. Dirt, stone, clay, more dirt. The massive machine moved like an extension of his body after nearly 2 decades of repetition. He barely needed to think anymore. The bucket lowered, scooped, lifted, dumped, again and again. It was around 10 in the morning when the excavator suddenly stopped. Not stalled, not overheated. Stopped. Kevin frowned immediately. He tried the controls again. The bucket lowered halfway. Then the entire machine locked hard. Motionless. Kevin muttered under his breath and shut the engine down. Something beneath the ground was blocking the bucket. Probably concrete. Maybe old piping. It happened sometimes. He climbed down slowly, his lower back already burning from the movement, and walked toward the excavation trench. At first he saw nothing unusual. Just dark soil. Rocks. Loose earth. But then he noticed it. Something pale beneath the dirt. Too smooth to be stone. Too curved to be debris. What's going on? Kevin turned and saw Martinez approaching. The site engineer. Impatient as always. There's something buried down there, Kevin said. The machine won't cut through it. Martinez looked irritated instantly. It's probably leftover concrete. Dig it out. We're already behind schedule. Kevin grabbed a shovel. 2 other workers joined him. At first the digging was careless. Routine. But slowly something strange began appearing beneath the dirt. White surface. Smooth edges. Shapes. Not natural. Not concrete. Something carved. One of the workers stopped suddenly. Wait. Everyone froze. Kevin crouched lower and brushed dirt away carefully with his hands. Then he saw it. A face. Eyes closed peacefully. Lips soft and calm. Then a veil. Folded robes. Hands clasped in prayer. Silence fell over the excavation site. Real silence. Even the machinery nearby seemed distant suddenly. The workers kept clearing dirt away carefully now. And little by little, the full figure emerged. A statue of the Virgin Mary. Nearly 6 feet tall. Completely intact. Kevin stared without blinking. It made no sense. The statue looked old. Very old. Yet somehow untouched. No cracks. No serious damage. No signs of collapse from years underground. As if someone had buried it yesterday. Not decades earlier beneath meters of earth and construction layers. The details were almost impossible. The folds of the robe looked soft enough to move in the wind. The fingers looked delicate and real. And the face carried an expression so peaceful that Kevin suddenly felt uncomfortable looking directly at it. Have you ever seen something so beautiful it almost hurt? Not because beauty itself is painful, but because sometimes beauty reminds you how damaged you feel inside. Kevin didn't know how to explain it. He only knew something about the statue unsettled him deeply. Not fear. Not confusion. Something else. Something heavier. One of the older workers, Roberto, slowly removed his hard hat and made the sign of the cross. This is a sign, he whispered quietly. Kevin said nothing. He didn't believe in signs. Martinez climbed down into the trench, visibly annoyed now instead of impressed. What are we supposed to do with this thing, he muttered. Kevin still couldn't look away from the statue's face. Martinez crossed his arms. Move it somewhere. We need to continue excavation. Roberto looked shocked. You can't just throw away a statue of the Virgin Mary. Martinez shrugged. It's an old object buried in the dirt. This is a construction site, not a church. Then he pointed toward Kevin. Get it out of the hole, Carter. And that's when something strange happened. Kevin looked at the statue one more time. And for reasons he himself didn't understand. The idea of throwing it away suddenly felt wrong. It's probably worthless anyway. Martinez shrugged dismissively as he stared at the statue covered in dirt. But Kevin kept looking at it. What if it wasn't worthless? He wasn't religious. Didn't go to church. Didn't pray. Didn't believe in miracles or signs or anything beyond what he could physically touch. But even Kevin knew there were collectors willing to pay enormous amounts of money for old religious artifacts. And this statue looked ancient. Very ancient. I'll take it, Kevin finally said. Martinez barely cared. Fine. Just get it off my construction site. With the help of 2 co-workers, Kevin carefully lifted the statue from the excavation pit. It should have been heavier. 6 feet of stone buried underground for who knows how many years. But somehow, it felt lighter than expected. That unsettled Kevin almost as much as the statue itself. They loaded it into the back of Kevin's pickup truck carefully. Throughout the entire drive home, Kevin kept glancing into the rearview mirror. At the statue. At the peaceful face partially covered by dust and dirt. And the strangest part was this. He couldn't stop feeling like someone was watching him. Get a grip, he muttered to himself while driving. It's a statue. Nothing more. That evening, Kevin struggled to drag the statue into his garage. He finally positioned it against the back wall between old toolboxes, spare tires, and shelves cluttered with forgotten junk. Then he stepped back. What now? The original plan was simple. Research the value. Find a collector. Sell it. Done. But now, standing there beneath the dim garage light, Kevin felt strangely hesitant. Almost guilty. As if selling it would somehow be wrong. Tomorrow, he whispered to himself. I'll deal with it tomorrow. That night, he barely slept. The pain in his lower back flared harder than usual. Sharp. Burning. Relentless. At 3 in the morning, Kevin finally gave up trying to sleep. He walked into the kitchen, swallowed pain medication with cold water, and sat alone in darkness staring at nothing. But even then, he kept thinking about the statue. The face. The eyes. The impossible calm in its expression. "You're losing your mind," Kevin muttered. "It's just stone." Still, when dawn finally arrived and pale morning light entered the garage through the dirty windows, the first thing Kevin did was go look at it again. And somehow, in daylight, the statue looked even more beautiful. The folds of the mantle appeared almost soft. The hands looked delicate and alive. And the expression on the Virgin Mary's face carried such deep serenity that Kevin suddenly felt uncomfortable standing too close to it. Slowly he reached out, touched the surface. Cold stone. Nothing unusual. Normal. But then, a tingling sensation moved through his fingertips, warmth spreading slowly up his arm. Kevin jerked his hand back immediately. His heartbeat accelerated. "No," he whispered instantly. "No, absolutely not." His mind was playing tricks on him. That had to be it. Stress, painkillers, exhaustion, nothing more. The following days seemed normal, at least on the surface. Kevin worked, came home, ate microwave dinners, watched television half asleep. The statue remained inside the garage exactly where he had left it. And every day Kevin told himself he would finally research it, call a collector, find out its value, sell it, move on. But somehow, he never did. Always another excuse. Too tired, too busy, tomorrow, always tomorrow. The truth was simpler. Something inside him didn't want to let the statue go, even though he couldn't explain why. Then on the fifth day, Kevin noticed something strange. The pain felt different. Still there, but quieter somehow. Less vicious. As if someone had lowered the volume on suffering. Kevin frowned immediately. That wasn't possible. Herniated discs didn't randomly improve. Especially not severe ones. Maybe he just got lucky. A temporary good week. That happens sometimes. Except the next day felt better too. And the day after that. And the next. By the second week, Kevin realized something even stranger. He wasn't moving the same way anymore. He wasn't climbing out of bed like an old man. Wasn't bracing himself against walls when standing up. Wasn't grimacing every time he bent over. His body felt lighter. 3 weeks later, Kevin finally made an appointment with his doctor. He hated doctors. Hated waiting rooms. Hated hospitals. Hated every conversation that reminded him how broken his spine really was. But he needed answers. Because this made no sense. Dr. Mitchell looked just as serious as always when Kevin explained everything. "Mr. Carter," he said carefully, "herniated discs do not improve this way naturally. I need new imaging immediately." Kevin underwent another MRI along with several additional tests. A week later, he returned to the office. Dr. Mitchell sat behind his desk staring strangely at the scans on the computer, and Kevin immediately knew something was wrong. Or maybe, something impossible. "Mr. Carter," the doctor finally said slowly, "I honestly don't understand what I'm looking at." Kevin felt tension crawl into his chest. "What do you mean?" Dr. Mitchell opened 2 MRI scans side by side. "This image here is from 6 months ago." Kevin nodded. He remembered that scan well. Remembered staring at the damaged area wondering how something so small could destroy an entire life. Dr. Mitchell pointed at the screen. "Severe herniation. L4, L5. Then he opened the new scan. "And this is from last week." Kevin leaned closer. His eyes narrowed, then widened. The herniation was nearly gone. Kevin stared silently. "That's impossible," he whispered. Dr. Mitchell removed his glasses slowly. "That's exactly my concern." He pointed carefully between the scans. "Discs do not regress this way. Not this severely. Not this quickly." Kevin swallowed hard. "So, no surgery?" The doctor hesitated. "Based on these images?" "No." Kevin walked out of the office feeling numb. Nothing about this made sense anymore. Things like this didn't happen in real life. Especially not to someone like him. 1 week later, on a quiet Saturday morning, Kevin entered the garage looking for a screwdriver to repair a leaking faucet. And that's when it happened. The smell. Roses. Fresh roses. Strong enough to completely overpower the usual odors of oil, gasoline, dust, and rust. Kevin stopped instantly. His entire body froze. There were no flowers anywhere. No open windows. No explanation. But the scent kept growing stronger. Real. Unmistakable. Kevin slowly turned toward the statue. And the closer he moved toward it, the stronger the smell became. Then came the warmth again. Soft. Gentle. Surrounding him completely like sunlight after years of cold. Kevin's breathing became uneven. His heart pounding violently now. And then, he saw her. A woman standing on the far side of the garage. Kevin blinked hard. She remained there. Not a shadow. Not imagination. Not exhaustion. Real. She wore a deep blue mantle that seemed almost woven from the sky itself. A white robe glowing softly without any visible light source. Her hands extended gently toward him. But it was the face. The face that completely shattered him. It carried a beauty impossible to describe. Not ordinary beauty. Something deeper. Pure. The kind of beauty that reminds you of everything good you forgot still existed in the world. Your mother smiling at you as a child. Warm kitchens on Sunday mornings. Safety. Peace. Love without conditions. And her eyes. Her eyes looked directly into Kevin as though she could see every wound hidden inside him. Every lonely night. Every moment of pain. Every buried piece of grief he spent years trying not to feel. And instead of judgment, there was only compassion. Every lie Kevin ever told himself. Every time he shut people out. Every time he chose isolation because it felt safer than being hurt again. Those eyes saw all of it. And still, there was no judgment. Only love. A love so deep Kevin didn't even know something like it could exist. A love that asked nothing from him in return. Didn't demand he become stronger. Didn't demand he become worthy. Didn't demand perfection. It simply accepted him exactly as he was. Broken. Tired. Alone. Kevin tried to speak. But no words came. And suddenly, without warning, he remembered his mother. 12 years gone. And yet in that moment, the memory hit him like it had happened yesterday. His mother kneeling beside her bed every night praying the rosary for him. The soft sound of beads moving through her fingers. The peaceful expression on her face. The faith he never understood. After she died, Kevin buried everything connected to her. The prayers. The memories. The faith. Not because he stopped loving her, but because loving her hurt too much. And because somewhere deep down, he felt betrayed. If her faith had been real, why couldn't it save her? So Kevin closed his heart completely. And for 12 long years, he stayed closed. Now standing in that garage with the scent of roses filling the air, something finally broke inside him. Kevin collapsed to his knees. And the tears came. Not quiet tears. Not controlled tears. Real grief. The kind that tears through a person from the inside out. He cried for his mother. For the marriage he let die. For every lonely year. For every wall he built around himself. For the life he wasted pretending he didn't need anyone. He cried like a child. Without shame. Without trying to stop. And through it all, he felt that gaze resting gently upon him. That impossible love asking nothing in return. When Kevin finally lifted his head again, the woman was gone. But the scent of roses remained. Soft. Peaceful. Real. That same weekend, Kevin began cleaning the backyard. It wasn't much. Just a neglected patch of land behind the house overrun with weeds and old junk. But somehow, it felt important now. Necessary. First he cleared everything away. Pulled weeds from the ground. Removed broken debris. Turned the hard soil with aching hands. Then he built a small concrete platform. Simple. Solid. Respectful. A proper place. Afterward, he carried the statue carefully from the garage into the backyard and placed it gently onto the base. For a long moment, Kevin simply stood there staring at it beneath the afternoon sunlight. But he still wasn't finished. The next morning, he drove to a gardening center. Kevin knew absolutely nothing about flowers. Nothing about gardening. Nothing about soil or fertilizer or seasons. But he knew exactly what he wanted. Roses. White roses. Red roses. Dozens of them. He bought tools. Bags of soil. Fertilizer. Everything the employee recommended. And over the next several hours, Kevin planted roses around the statue one by one beneath the Texas sun. When he finally finished, he stepped back silently. The Virgin Mary stood peacefully surrounded by blooming roses. Simple. Beautiful. Alive. And for the first time in years, Kevin felt something he thought he had lost forever. Peace. The months that followed changed him in ways he never expected. The pain in his back continued improving steadily. Not instantly. Not magically disappearing overnight. There were still difficult days. But the unbearable agony that once controlled his entire life kept fading little by little. Until eventually, Kevin realized he could work full shifts again without collapsing afterward. He could sleep, walk normally, breathe without bracing for pain. But the physical healing wasn't the greatest miracle. No, the real miracle was what happened inside him. Kevin began talking to neighbors he had ignored for years, started saying good morning, accepted invitations to cookouts, helped people repair fences and move furniture. Coworkers noticed too. He smiled now sometimes. Actually smiled. Not often, but enough that people noticed. Then one evening Kevin did something even more difficult. He called Lauren, not to ask her to come back, not to repair the marriage. Too much time had passed for that. He called simply to apologize. "I know I failed you," he told her quietly. "I know you tried to love me, and I pushed you away." Long silence on the phone. Then Lauren spoke softly. "I waited a long time to hear you say that." Kevin closed his eyes. "I'm sorry." And for the first time in years, the conversation ended without anger, without bitterness, without blame, only peace. And somehow, that was enough. Sometimes late at night, Kevin sat alone in the backyard beside the statue, surrounded by roses. He talked quietly, not formal prayers, just conversations. About work, about his mother, about loneliness, about life. And sometimes, when the wind moved gently through the roses, Kevin could swear he felt that presence again. That warmth, that gaze, that impossible love asking nothing in return. 1 year after discovering the statue buried underground, Kevin stood at another construction site operating another excavator beneath another brutal Texas sun. Routine day, normal work. Then suddenly, the machine stalled. Kevin laughed softly to himself. Actually laughed. He climbed down carefully and walked toward the excavation area. But this time, he smiled the entire way there. Because now he understood something he never understood before. Sometimes interruptions are not accidents. Sometimes what stops us, saves us, changes us. He reached the trench, looked down. Only a large rock blocking the machinery. Nothing special, nothing miraculous. But Kevin still smiled, because now he knew something important. A year earlier, he had discovered a buried statue and thought only about money, thought only about selling it. And instead, that statue gave him things no amount of money could ever buy. Healing, peace, faith, hope, a reason to open his heart again. Some mysteries are never fully explained. And maybe they aren't supposed to be. Maybe grace doesn't need proof. Maybe miracles don't arrive to convince the world. Maybe they arrive simply to heal one broken person at exactly the right moment. And if you made it this far to the end of Kevin's story, write roses in the comments. The perfume that changed everything. And every time I see that word, I'll know one more person still believes miracles of the Virgin Mary can happen even in the most unexpected places. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. And share this video with someone who may need hope today. May the Virgin Mary continue blessing and protecting you and your family. Amen.